It's a huge week of new releases, including stealth games, a colony sim, roguelites, tactics titles, and some very promising action platformers, so let's begin with Mecharashi, a turn-based tactical mecha RPG inspired by the classic front mission games built around unit customization, targeting and destroying parts on enemies, as well as classic turn-based tactics on a grid. You command a squad of mechs, whose components such as torso, arms, legs, and weapons each have independent hit points, and destroying specific parts disables enemy mobility or firepower, rewarding precise targeting. The way the camera moves in this game is impressive, swinging down into the action and looks pretty epic, although it should be noted that the Steam page indicates that it will be free to play, but there is no mention of microtransactions, so I'm not sure what the business model is, and hopefully it will not be too gross. Time Flies is a minimalist looking, hand-drawn adventure game that has you playing as a fly, racing against time, and wants you to think about our limited time on this planet. Life is short and your bucket list is long, so fly around and start checking things off the list, from learning to play an instrument, get rich, get drunk, not necessarily in that order, or just live and exist, with this coming to us from the developer of Kids and Plug and Play, similar experimental titles which are also worth a play. This video is brought to you by Cats and Cups, a cozy management game which puts you behind the counter of a cat-inspired coffee shop, where your patrons are felines with distinct personalities who place coffee orders that each trigger short mini-games. You brew and make drinks by mastering drink-specific mini-games, selecting cups, pouring milk, pushing buttons on machines, stirring drinks, and so on to satisfy increasingly picky customers. You can customize the cafe, decorating it as you see fit while unlocking new stories, drinks, and upgrades along the way. Each of the customers are unique characters who have their own stories to tell, all wrapped up with a delightful art style which simply looks so pleasant, so if interested, wishlist the game on Steam because they are releasing a demo very soon. If you have any love for indie games or the classics, one look at Spy Drops and you will immediately know what they are going for, being a throwback to the original Metal Gear Solid with impressive low-poly 3D art and the stealth action focus. Save the world from a terrorist threat as a secret spy agent type, but this time it will have randomized levels for replayability, more gear loadout strategy options, as well as a number of systems like hacking to change things up. You drop into these facilities and are tasked with infiltrating hostile bases, selecting from a range of gear like drones, night vision goggles, hacking tools, silent weapons, or non-lethal takedown items, which will affect your strategic options going in. Once deployed, avoid cameras, creep around guards, and use the Dreamcatcher tool to carry out non-lethal interrogation while the enemy is unconscious instead of outright killing them. Fatalities close off options for intel recovery, so you should only use it as a last resort, with further variables in the form of time of day, lighting, and weather adding more unpredictability to the missions. There's also a local 1v1 multiplayer mode to allow you to go spy versus spy with a friend, looking so cool that I had to give it a mention. Heartworm is a highly anticipated retro-style survival horror game where you pass through the threshold and enter a world born of your memories, but twisted horribly as you seek to make contact with the other side to speak to your grandfather whose death you cannot get over. This is very classic survival horror, resembling Elisa in spots down to the visual style, having tank controls and fixed camera angles, but with the option for modern controls as well as third-person over-the-shoulder aiming as well. This surreal nightmare world shifts and warps, resembling a liminal space filled with locked doors, branching corridors, and atmospheric encounters, with some spooky monster designs and limited combat elements. I think that it looks great, but understand it might not be for everyone. But if games like Signalis are anything to go by, the potential audience for a game like this is huge, so let's hope this is good. Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. One of the most fascinating entries of the week is Gold Gold Adventure Gold, an oddly named title from an oddly named developer called Can-Man, and is a colony sim reverse RPG in which gold makes god. You are the divine steward of a growing settlement, commanding adventurers to gather resources, fight monsters, and build amenities to fuel your godly ambitions, but you do not have direct control of them, instead having to tempt them with gold as a reward and thus resemble the Majesty games. You build structures ranging from farms and taverns to guild halls, and send out adventurers on quests such as monster slaying, to exploration or town defense, being able to shape your settlement depending on the types of adventurers you attract. The heroes operate semi-autonomously, forming parties, funding new buildings, or taking on new quests, but as a wise man once said, "Show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome," meaning that you need to motivate them accordingly. There is a pet god beast which you can raise, so perhaps some black and white DNA as well, with it having some good hand-drawn art which is surprisingly gory and should be an interesting release. Other games begin with another farm roguelike Rebirth, a roguelike strategy title in which you are managing your own farm, having clicker elements as you click to grow or harvest resources, which you then have to sell to make rent, otherwise it is game over. Manage crops, livestock, crafting and buildings in fast-paced runs, starting with just a small plot of land and basic tools, clicking to plant, harvest, fish, craft or build structures, growing your economic engine. The rent increases every round, so you need to find combos which work, adding value through cooking, smithing, animal husbandry and other advanced production methods, all while juggling modifiers that enhance or penalize the amount of resources generated. It is a roguelite, so there will be procedural generation for replayability, varying up the terrain and biomes, as well as which upgrades you draw, and while the pixel art looks absolutely adorable, the strategy does look kind of intense in that bilateral kind of manner. A more traditional action roguelite is Atomic Owl, a side-scrolling action platformer with a cool neon-infused art style in which you play as Hidalgo, the last free blade wing, on a quest to defeat a twisted crow sorcerer and to save your corrupted friends, which I take to mean that they will be the bosses in this game. Everything is avian themed, including some bird puns, such as the game having foul ninja action, looking like a classic roguelite platformer with jumping, platforming, as well as dash/slash action using your weapons to dispatch enemies. These include whip, hammer, blade and more, along with a ranged scythe weapon, plus a variety of in-run upgrades which might combo together as you craft your build. Die and you're revived by a phoenix and will be reborn stronger with your meta progression upgrades, so nothing too crazy or innovative, but it looks like a gorgeous one of these. Co-op Kaiju Horror Cooking is the latest co-op horror title, following in the footsteps of Likho Company, in which up to 4 players play as medieval monks facing down colossal, picky kaiju. You have to appease said kaiju, venturing into a perilous, reality-warping labyrinth to gather ingredients, fight other monsters and turn them into food if need be. Chop ingredients, add salt, cook them, burn them, and then fire it into the kaiju's mouth using a catapult, with the game eerily warning you not to stay in the larder and not to get caught. This comes to us from Strange Scaffold, one of the most prolific and weirdest indie developers around, being their first multiplayer title, and given how games like this can go, might be one to watch. The developer of Contract Rush DX did reach out and I wanted to help them along, where if the opening seconds of this trailer feels familiar, that is because this developer is familiar with Flash and worked on Friday Night Funkin' and Undertale Yellow, with this game starting off as a Newgrounds demo but grew into something much larger. It's a hand-drawn 2D run-and-gun action platformer, but mixed in with other elements designed around fast-paced exploration, character variety, and upgrade-driven combat. You select one of multiple playable characters, each of which are unique and differ in movement and firing style, then run through large themed levels called contracts that end in a boss fight. Along the way, you collect temporary power-ups such as increased fire rate, spread shots, or fast movement speed, which stack to affect your build for the level. There are subcontract objectives like time trials or gauntlet style runs with a 3-star scoring system, but come on, the art and animations in this looks awesome, so of course I'm interested. Developer Surgeons Studios is an interesting one, having made the Metroidvania Tales of Kenzara Zao, with Dead Take being a very different kind of game, and is a first-person psychological horror title with FMV telling a tale as you explore an eerie, luxurious Hollywood mansion. You play as an actor searching for your missing friend, navigating through the house and discovering corrupted video footage files, haunted rooms, and cryptic physical clues. Locate and go through these to uncover the mystery and to find out what happened to your friend, with the atmosphere and dread from first-person exploration being excellently done while still having that modern-day setting. There's a who's who of actors in this game, which should be due to relationships that actor and studio founder Abu Bakar Salim of House of the Dragon fame has, with it being picked up by Pocket Pair Publishing as well, rolling the success of Pal World into supporting other games and will be for horror game fans. Yet another co-op horror title is Delivery Pals, this time with a sci-fi alien theme where up to 8 players work together to operate a mobile train base, using it to explore toxic wastelands to deliver cooked meals to demanding alien customers. Each run starts at your train, outfitted with customizable kitchen stations, order tracking monitors, storage units, and crafting tools, all of which can be upgraded between missions. Your crew splits duties between scavenging, cooking, and defending, gathering ingredients, prepping orders, delivering the food, while keeping an eye out for horrible monsters. The world outside the train is filled with hazards, not just the aliens, but also collapsing ground, poisonous fog, and more, being, coincidentally, the second co-op horror game with cooking this week, so let's see how this does. I played a bunch of shoot-'em-ups when I was younger, both in arcades and on the Genesis, so if you love the genre like me, Earthion might be of note, a retro-style side-scrolling shoot-'em-up built natively for 16-bit hardware but is also available on modern platforms, where you pilot a space fighter through 8 handcrafted stages filled with bosses, enemy swarms, and environmental hazards. Fight alien invaders across the levels ranging from ruined cities, the skies, and even out into space, with primary and secondary shots plus interchangeable sub-weapons, which provides plenty of variety. If you're not a fan of the gameplay, there's not much I can do to convince you otherwise, but if you do, this looks fun, with awesome pixel art as well, and critically, legendary Japanese composer Yuzo Koshiro is making this game, best known for soundtracks like that of Streets of Rage 2, and looks to nail the retro throwback aspect. I'm not really a vehicle combat guy, since Twisted Metal was never really my thing, which is why I have FUMES here, one that seems to have a decent amount of hype behind it, and is a roguelite set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Build and weaponize cars to battle enemies and bosses across procedurally generated desert environments, slapping on machine guns, saw blades, flamethrowers, rocket launchers, and more, and then driving and firing at the same time. Each battle rewards scrap and upgrades, which you haul back to base to restore and refit your vehicle before the next attempt, where a mastery of the driving physics will be essential to your success. The chunky, low-poly visuals look good as well, with what looks like boss fights against gigantic mechanical monsters looking quite epic and should be fun. Speaking of roguelites, Hell Galaxy is a space horror title that mixes starfighter control, ship customization, resource management, and emergent exploration across haunted star systems. You pilot a ship inhabited by a condemned consciousness, being able to fly it X-Wing style and to use weapons, shields, and other loadouts on your journey. Combat looks to be fast-paced and intense, and yes, you can do a barrel roll and all that, dodging enemy fires, drones, and even specters. You will be able to mine asteroids for resources used in upgrades, along with what seems to be permanent star bases that serve as your home base. Most interestingly, it is not just enemy ships, but also mind-eating entities and gigantic cosmic titans, where you need to find and exploit the weak spots in the latter, where I'm always a sucker for huge aliens or eldritch gods in space, so this got my attention. There are a number of games with Ink in the title on Steam, so don't get confused, with Inkborn being a Slay the Spire style roguelite deck builder with a cool papercraft look, with the gimmick of chaining glyph-marked cards into potent combos. You begin each run at your town hub, where a skill tree and card upgrades lets you determine your starting strategy. Each expedition into the Folded Forest or Origami Ruins requires playing cards in the right sequence to trigger elemental or synergy effects, with powerful one-off idea items being a reward for combo chains mid-battle, which can rapidly change the tide of battle. Again, nothing too crazy here in terms of uniqueness, but it looks nice, interestingly coming to us from Akram Digital, which is best known for digital editions of tabletop board games, but as far as I can tell, this is a video game only. Based off an offhanded remark by a local politician, Love in Tiny Spaces is a cheeky title from Singaporean developer Battle Brew Productions, a stealth game where you have to navigate maze-like apartment corridors at night to meet your girlfriend while avoiding detection by nosy neighbours and her parents, with a dose of humour as well. Someone tell me if there's an asset pack of this pixel art style going around or something, but I have seen quite a number of games that look like this, not that I'm complaining, since Luck and Loot looks pretty good, being a dice building roguelite within a classic fantasy world. You battle corrupted foes in dungeons, choosing from one of multiple hero classes such as warrior, mage or rogue, and then use dice crafting to forge a customized set of dice, altering their faces to tilt probability in your favour. These dice determine spells, attacks or utility effects available as you roll dice to see their effects play out in combat. Relics will drastically alter your strategy and is replayable in that roguelite manner, so strategy game fans, this one's for you. A cool looking first-person exploration walking sim is NIDANA, a so-called dream walking title set within a surreal monochrome geometric megastructure where you're exploring a fragment of someone's dream without any text or guided narrative. Walk through ever-shifting abstract spaces using spatial memory to navigate and to unlock new corridors. The environment morphs around you and the rooms can tilt or loop with the non-Euclidean layouts, forcing you to think beyond how normal rooms work. There's no inventory system, combat or puzzles in the traditional sense, relying entirely on walking, kind of reminding me of Manifold Garden, but with an even more minimalist presentation and just looks cool. Another visually sick-looking title is One-Eyed Likho, a first-person psychological horror game deeply rooted in Slavic folklore, where you're exploring a creepy forest in search of the mythical creature Likho. This is based on a Slavic fairy tale where the creature is often depicted as a skinny old woman clad in black, said to be the embodiment of evil fate and misfortune, where seeking her out is a desperate attempt to escape your own fate. Movement is deliberate, with slow, atmospheric traversal forcing you to observe environmental puzzles, with the lighting of matches and using fire being the central mechanic. I'm not sure how this is supposed to extend out into a full game, so I guess we'll see, but the monochrome art style is fantastically done here and is very fitting for this game. SWAT Commander is a cooperative tactical squad shooter where you command a team of up to 5 operatives or 5 players in co-op through tense mission-based scenarios, all rooted in precise planning, gear management, real-time tactical decisions, and environmental interactions. Begin each mission by briefing your squad, configuring loadouts that include firearms, breaching tools, shields, non-lethal gear, and grenades, then deploy into preset missions. As you breach buildings, room by room, your team follows designated paths and executes actions according to your instructions, while you retain the flexibility to shift between planning and engagement phases, drawing up new tactics mid-operation if need be. Missions include a variety of objectives, including eliminating terrorists, rescuing hostages, securing intel, and more, each demanding different squad configurations and strategies. Enemy AI reacts dynamically to your actions, meaning that timing and target prioritization are vital as you coordinate and execute the perfect plan. Between runs, unlock new weapons, gear upgrades, and tactical perks, then go on and take on new missions looking kind of like old school Rainbow Six and is hotly anticipated. Despite everything, I do still love the simple 2D platformer, which is why The Warrior is of interest, a dynamic 2D platformer in which you assume the control of a rotating roster of legendary warrior archetypes, from nimble assassins to lumbering demon lords, with each changing protagonist controlling differently, building different weapons, facing different foes, and telling a different story. Combat mixes melee and ranged options, with characters that can swing giant swords to ones that can fly or glide, where I particularly love the minimalist pixel art and is the hidden gem of the week. Like the co-op horror title, another genre which is seeing a bunch of new entries is the idle game, most commonly in the form of the bottom-of-screen variant, with tiny terraces joining the fray in being a cozy idle farming sim. You have worker units named Fellas, which will do the farming for you as they mill about planting and harvesting crops, with sound effects that sound suspiciously like Stardew Valley, which I suppose is the point. In idle game fashion, crops can be sold to get more resources to buy new crops and so on, with various upgrades to improve efficiency, where again, I have a soft spot for the pixel art, so this is of note. Stop me if you've heard this before, since Village Tale is a pixel art bottom-of-screen idle game that has you managing and growing your very own village, starting with building basic structures like homes, farms, and workshops, then assigning villagers to resource gathering, crafting, or production duties. The tiny workers look adorable and automatically go about chopping trees, farming, or fishing, eventually being able to establish trade routes and to bring in technology and automation to increase production while still having to keep your people happy. Decorations are not only cosmetic, but do also increase happiness, allowing you to create a cozy little escape away from work or other stuff you do on your PC, where we really must be hitting a saturation point with games like these, right? This next title is the student project from IsArt Digital Montreal, where Wires and Whiskers is a cooperative action puzzle platformer for 2 players, with the main gimmick of magnetism as well as 2-player co-op It Takes Two style, set in a post-apocalyptic world. One player controls a lab-engineered gerbil capable of agile melee dashes, wall jumps, and environmental traversal, while the other controls its magnetic exosuit capable of ranged attacks, as well as the ability to solve polarity-based puzzles. Together, you overcome obstacles and mutated enemies using precise physics-driven mechanics, looking quite polished and impressive. So if this is the future of game development, then it sure does look bright and will be a free release, so definitely give this a go. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. Star Vortex is an ambitious space action RPG blending ship customization, loot-driven progression, and emergent combat loops across randomly generated sectors. You pilot a customizable starfighter, selecting components like weapons, boosters, shields, and various other modules, with the game taking inspiration from Diablo 2, so the loot treadmill-driven gameplay loop should be present. Battle enemies in real time, dodging their attacks, firing back and gaining XP and loot, with plenty of modifiers and stats to consider for your equipment. Each sector has elite enemies, mini-bosses, and rare weapon drops, enabling interesting build variety, where you're also able to design your very own ship, altering not just its cosmetic appearance, but also slots for weapons, thrusters, and more. There are 3 large upgrade trees and a huge array of weapons and parts, so if you love Diablo like me, this might be of interest. Prospector is a sci-fi sandbox crafting game where you play as a lone prospector, landing on a barren alien planet to harvest resources, automate a growing base, and fulfill contracts with distant colonies. You begin with basic tools, manually mining local resource nodes, and building rudimentary supply lines that ensure you have breathable air for exploration. As you expand, you construct machinery such as mining drills, refining units, and storage hubs, programming robotic helpers to shuttle goods, automate crafting, and maintain life support while you scout further ahead. Embedded in the terrain are rare alien artifacts and vibrant resource deposits that require strategic placement of supply lines to reach safely, with completed contracts rewarding you with new blueprints, bots, and other upgrades, looking like some sort of mix between Astroneer and Forager, and should be good. Dinosaur Metroidvania, that's the basic idea of Primal Planet, where you play as a prehistoric human hunter exploring a world filled with dinosaurs, primitive tribes, and also UFOs and aliens. Begin with a simple stone spear and no abilities, crafting basic tools and healing items from plants, bones, and scrap, while navigating a large interconnected map of forests, deserts, underground tunnels, and high cliffs. Each region hides crafting materials, shortcuts, hostile creatures, and secret upgrades that tie directly into exploration. For example, using a torch to burn away at brambles, or placing spears as platforms to reach higher ledges. Combat is fast-paced and deliberate, with dodge-based melee, throwable weapons, and stealth opportunities. As you progress, you'll gain new movement abilities like double jump, air dash, wall climb, and breath extensions, allowing you to loop back to earlier zones to uncover missed paths, locked doors, or hidden bosses. There is co-op support, where the other player controls a tiny dinosaur, but otherwise looks to be fully playable solo, with the more survival game slant being interesting, with resource gathering and crafting, as well as spoilage of meat and torches which burn out, so I wonder how punishing this game will be, but Dinovania pretty much sells itself. Day of the Shell is a turn-based tactical roguelite built around the idea of one click, one turn, where you control just a single character which speeds up the action. Our hero is traversing flooded islands on a mission to challenge the gods, having to reach the heart of the islands in order to destroy the shell. You have a revolver as your primary weapon, using it to blast away at enemies, with various choices of upgrades presented to you within the run, as well as a meta progression system. Every move, be it positioning, firing, or blessing activation, is resolved with a single click, yet the strategy remains deeply layered thanks to the dynamic interplay of cover, limited shots per turn, and how enemies react. Death resets your run, but permanent upgrades persist in the form of runes that boost stats, new blessings unlocked, and new relic variants, and will be for tactics fans. Of course, my most anticipated title of the week comes to us from the developer of FUMES, whose games and pixel art were so good that they were entrusted with the Ninja Gaiden IP, making a level-based 2D platformer named Ragebound. There is a 2-character setup where you can swap between them, or to use ninja fusion when the time is right, as our hero is left to defend the village from the Demon Lord after Ryu Hayabusa, the protagonist of the original games, leaves for America. Needless to say, the pixel art is on point, with it having demoed extremely well and is a no-brainer pick. Watch this video for more action platformers.